Would you all raise your hands if you've ever been intimidated by an authority figure, criticized for really being your authentic self? Maybe. Think about that, Chris. Well, raise your hands if you've ever been bullied or teased for being shy. All right, a few more hands. Well, I can raise my hands for most situations. When I was in kindergarten, I had a teacher who told my mother that I would not make it out of kindergarten and into the first grade. But my mother refused to believe her. And every day after school, she would work with me using reading comprehension workbooks. And during my kindergarten year, my mother and I moved. But let me go back. The teacher thought that I was slow because I took my time completing assignments, and then I didn't talk as much as the other kids. So when my mother and I moved, I went to another elementary school. But the elementary school teacher that I had, she didn't have that same idea about me. She thought that I was shy, I was quiet, but did not think I was slow. So I successfully completed kindergarten and went on to the first grade. And then in my first grade class, the teacher had us divided up in different sections based upon our reading level. And I was in the lower reading level group. But I had a friend who was in the higher reading level group. So one day she turned to me and asked me what a particular word was in the book. And I told her. Then my teacher, she overheard me and pulled me to the side and had me read out of the higher level reading book. And I read through it flawlessly. But then my teacher told my mother about me reading the book and asked my mother if I could be challenged more in class. And my mother agreed. And I've been challenging myself ever since. But not only was my shyness misinterpreted in school, it was also misinterpreted at church. And every Sunday after church, all the kids would gather into Pastor Herring's office because he would hand out bubble gum. And mind you, I love bubble gum back in the day. I like Bubblicious. I don't know if you all like bubble gum, but that was my thing back then, and he had it. But I didn't really like going to his office because I felt singled out. He would tease me, but he wouldn't tease the other kids. So I would walk in, he would say, Shani. And I would say, my name is Shani. Then he would fall out laughing before he hands me a piece of bubble gum. So this went on, but you would think that I would stop going, but I didn't want to feel left out by being the only one not going in my friend group. But I told my mother about the situation, and then she talked to him about it. But he told her the reason why that he teased me because I didn't talk as much as the other kids did. And he wanted me to engage in conversation with him. So I told my mother, I was like, I tell him thank you each and every time I get a donut. She said, no, not so much. He wanted me to really converse with him. I still went and got the bubble gum. I would say a few things, but not so much to get outside my comfort zone. But what I learned from this experience is my mother, she served as my support system. She didn't make me change my personality based upon how somebody else felt that I should behave. She encouraged me to be my authentic self. So, you know, if you ever have someone in your life that encourages you to be your authentic self, please, please cherish them. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where someone thought that you were a certain type of way, like a certain personality type, and then something changed that caused them to change their opinion of you. Anybody had experience? You had experience? You know what happened?
Are you going to share?
Yes, okay. Yes, ma'am.
This happened in the school year. Like in the beginning of the school year, I was homeschooled last 2 years, so this is my first time back in the public school system. So it was a big change. I mean, in the beginning, I was really excited because like I didn't really enjoy homeschool, so I was happy to be back into the building. But like it's really hard. Like the transition is hard. Like I've always been an honor student. I skipped a grade, and everything like that. But once I got back in school, like the first 2 quarters kind of went smoothly, but in like the middle of second quarter, it started like kind of like going downhill. Like I started struggling a little bit more. overwhelming, especially being in high school and being at Wise. Like, just the transition from being homeschooled to here and all the people, because I'm like, I try to be in, like, I really don't enjoy being around so many people at Wise. It's a really big school. So, I know in the beginning of the year, like, when I met this, one of my friends, and he was like, oh, like, you're really sweet, like, you're really kind, you talk a lot, this, that, other thing. And but now, it's like, after, like, second quarter, like, now, he's like, oh, like, you kind of changed a little bit since I first met you in first quarter.
Anyone else have an example of somebody changing their opinion? Thank you so much for sharing. I can definitely identify with that. If you feel comfortable, usually when you meet somebody, you can kind of tell the energy, you feel that, okay, I can be myself around them. So that's pretty good. But this experience happened to me. In high school, I was considered the nice, the quiet, and the smart girl. And I was elated when I found out that I was going to be salutatorian in my graduating class. And with this, you know, you have to give the first speech during the graduation ceremony. And mind you, I hadn't done very much public speaking other than saying a few lines during a Christmas play at church, or standing in front of the congregation with a group of other kids reciting Bible verses. But nothing really entailed. I had a chance in the 10th grade to join the debate club. But I was thinking that, no, I wouldn't be good at that because that activity is for the boisterous people, ones that are really outspoken, outgoing, and really like to argue. So I'm like, I'm not for that. I just like to stick to writing my ideas down and then maybe having somebody else read them. But I knew that I wanted to do a good job, so I knew I had to practice in order to alleviate some of the nervousness that I may feel that day. And my mother helped me practice after I wrote my speech. She told me things like, make sure you get plenty of eye contact. Make sure you lower your voice at some points and then raise your voice at other points. But she told me most importantly, make sure I smile. Because I can make the crowd feel relaxed if they know that I'm relaxed. And on that day, I stepped up to the podium, looked around at my classmates, and I smiled as I began to deliver my speech. But then, while I was delivering my speech, I overheard my classmates say, "Ooh, she is smiling." And this made me feel really good. It relaxed me because I was happy. I was happy that I was able to show my personality and show that I'm not just a quiet person that they thought would give a really boring speech and put them to sleep. And then immediately after the graduation ceremony, a few of my classmates came up to me and told me I did a good job. And this really boosted my confidence. It made me feel that I can tackle the challenges that I knew I'd have to face in college. One activity that can really boost your confidence is volunteering. Have you all volunteered? Have you all enjoyed the experience? Somewhat, maybe not. But I know with volunteering, it, like I said, can boost your confidence, and then it can lead you into different areas that you think you might want to do in the future. Say, for instance, that you volunteer to do a park cleanup, organize a park cleanup event. Or you can volunteer to read to kids at the library. Or you can volunteer to sort food at a food bank. And then also, there's a lot of the elderly people who are not familiar with technology. And you can help them become familiar with technology as a way to increase your communication skills and boost your confidence. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where you were given a task that had a certain number of duties. You're like, okay, I got this, I can do this. But then when you get into the task, you find out there's more responsibilities. You're like, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting this. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I would say in organizing an event. My sister has a catering company, and I had to help her organize an event in her absence. Well, physically she was going to be absent. We did the prep work, so when we got there to the event, realizing it was a lot more work than what it was, because of course there's a lot of moving parts. But it was end result was actually really good because it boosted my confidence, my leadership skills. I was very more verbal. I mean, I'm verbal now, but very more direct. And I got a really good tip. So, like me did, they tipped us for our service being so great. So.
Oh, nice. So you learned and were compensated for it.
Yes, absolutely. And I wasn't even expecting it. I was just working to my level of comfort, at least where I knew what I was confident in doing, and then kind of stuck with that and radiated that energy. to my other people that I'm working with. It was like a staff of 3 of us.
Okay. So it's contagious. They saw your energy and then they
Yeah, we just
bring themselves accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
At the end.
Very good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
When I was in college, like of course you've all heard an introduction, I majored in chemistry. And I wanted to find something before I graduate, some type of job that was chemistry related. And I decided to work as a pharmacy technician at CVS Pharmacy during my junior and senior year. And the task that I was given was to make sure that I input the customer's information in the computer system along with the prescriptions, make sure that I knew the generic and the name brand medications, count the pills, have the pharmacist look at it to make sure I have the right medication and the right number of pills, bag up the medication, put it in the bag, and check out the customers. I thought that was just gonna be it. I was like, this is my comfort zone. I just have to talk to the pharmacist and other pharmacy technicians. This is great. But then I found out maybe 1 or 2 months into the job by observing one of the older pharmacy technicians that had been there for a while. She was able to talk to the customers. Say, for instance, they had issues with their insurance not covering it. She was able to calmly explain to them. Because usually when a customer comes into the pharmacy, they want to get their medication and go. They don't want to deal with any type of issues. So I saw how she maneuvered these interactions. And I was thinking, yeah, good for her. I wouldn't have to do that. Not so much. Maybe 1 or 2 months within the job, I was told that I would have to talk to the customers as well. And at first, it made me feel uncomfortable because I'm soft-spoken, and a lot of times when people come in the pharmacy, they may be hard of hearing, and I would have to raise my voice, or maybe even rephrase what I said so they can understand me. And when I would go home, I would feel really drained. But overall, I liked the job, so I kept at it, and became more comfortable each and every time I talked to the customers. So after that, I realized that maybe I enjoyed the experience, but I wasn't so much interested in becoming a pharmacist. But what I learned is whenever you have a difficult situation in life, you have to push through it in order to get to your goals. Because that discomfort is only temporary. But the satisfaction that you feel once you get over that hump just surpasses all the discomfort you feel while going through the hard times. Raise your hand if you hate confrontation. Why do you hate confrontation?
I just don't like the feeling of like going out to someone and telling them what they did. Because then I would get like very shy and timid.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I hate it. I just don't like. I feel like I don't like arguing with people, and I don't like. I don't know what it is. I can't just like talk to somebody about something that's bothering me. I don't know how to do that.
Anybody else? Well, for me, confrontation, it makes me feel uneasy. My heart starts beating fast, you start sweating, and then you're trying to think about what you're gonna say next. So yeah, I can never say, yes ma'am.
I don't like confrontation with my parents. I feel like it's harder because it's like it's harder to settle the situation, kind of, rather than like confrontation with your friends or confrontation with your siblings. I feel like my parents is hardest. Kind of.
Do you think it's because of their position over you?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? All right. Like I said, I really enjoyed my experience overall as being a pharmacy technician to improve my communication skills. But I couldn't see myself day in and day out talking to customers. But that was before I knew that pharmacists, they not only work in a retail pharmacy environment, they can also work in a hospital setting or even just work in a regular office doing some type of consultating. They don't have to necessarily talk to customers directly. But also when I was in college, my junior and senior year, I got experience in a scientific research laboratory. And I enjoyed it because the only time that I really had to talk to somebody was when I presented my research results. I was like, I can do that. Just one time after I finish everything up, this is good. So after I graduated college, I gained further research experience in graduate school. And my first professional job as a chemist was in the chemistry research laboratory. And in that job, I had a study director who everybody thought was extremely outspoken. The people that worked with her only worked with her for maybe 1 to 2 months before asking to be transferred to another study director. But my colleagues, they thought I was a saint because I stayed with her for 6 long years. Throughout all her criticisms and negative comments, because like I said before, I was afraid of confrontation. And then I didn't want to jeopardize my job because it was, a lot of times people don't have a hard time finding a job within their major once they graduate. So I was thankful for having a job, and I didn't want to, how do you say, rock the boat. Just wanted to maintain the peace.
That's true.
Bless you. But it's always that one day that everything changes. And for me, that one day was during Holy Week. A colleague and I were in a lab. She was a new colleague, and we were working on the laboratory procedure, and we made a mistake. And I immediately went to my study director's office to tell her what happened. So as I walked into the office and began telling her what happened, she stood up from her desk and said, "What?" and started yelling at me. Face was red, beet red. So I immediately turned away from her and out the door into the hallway. But then she began following me, still yelling at me. And at this point, I had my coworker was in the hallway with me, and she was still yelling. And I just looked at her and I said, "I'm gonna need for you to lower your voice because you're trying to intimidate me, and you're trying to intimidate my colleague." And so she was shocked that I didn't say anything to her. She lowered her voice though. But then afterwards, when I went into the lab, we went into the laboratory so I could explain to her further what happened. She started yelling at me again. And I told her, "You don't have to talk to me that way." And she replied, "You just don't know what goes on in my house during Holy Week." And I told her, "Well, you're not acting very holy. This is a time when you need to be thanking and praising God." So after that situation, I heard from my colleague, and she said that, her words exactly, "Shani, you were mad." She said my eyes were bloodshot red, and it looked like I was going to hurt the study director. And then also I heard from another colleague that my study director told my supervisor that it was time for me to move on. But young ladies, what I learned from this situation is it's never good to hold on to things that bother you, because it could get up to a point where somebody feels that you want to hurt them or threaten them, even though you don't have any intention of doing that. So it's good to set boundaries for yourself on how you want people to treat you. And then when they step over those boundaries, it's best to speak up immediately and not let it slide. Raise your hands if you can see yourself maybe 5 to 10 years from now, standing in front of an audience or a small group, maybe sharing your experiences. Okay? Yes, ma'am. What would you like to, once you finish school, what would you like to do?
I would want to do like marketing, or like anything in like cinematography or something.
Nice.
Like that. But I think I would like to like talk to people. Like I can see myself doing that because I don't know, I like talking to people, and I would like do that for somebody. Kind of like how you are, I guess.
And it will be needed, because I always need somebody to encourage us. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I guess not situations, like talking about situations that I've gone through, but just like talking in front of people, because at first I wanted to be a nursing major when I go to college, but it wasn't really like what I thought I wanted to do. So I kind of was leaning towards like communications and like, you know, the commentators, the women commentators that like commentate on sports and stuff like that, like journalism. I think I would be good at doing that because I understand like certain sports, and I like talking to people, so
Fantastic.
to
think I'll be good at that.
Good. Anybody else? Want to share?
Riley, what would you like to do when you grow up?
Not exactly sure.
But do you think you'll be speaking in front of people or performing in front of people?
Probably.
She performs all the time at church in front of people.
Be part of the dance team?
She sings and plays the guitar
Okay. Outstanding.
and speaks. She's very. So I can see her standing in front of people like one day.
Nice. So when I grew up as an only child, and the person that I shared my experiences with was my mother. And other than my mother, I would write down in my diary what I'm feeling. And I improved my written communication skills. I improved it up until the point where I felt confident to self-publish books. And my first self-published book is entitled I Didn't Part My Lips. And it was a book written to empower introverts to ignore the label and to go after what they really want in life. And it's also a book to help extroverts know the personality of introverts, meaning telling them that we're not, or explaining to them that we're not standoffish, we're not necessarily shy, we're not slow. We have something to say, something to offer, but we just express ourselves differently. But young ladies, the most important thing that you should do when you feel comfortable is to share your experiences. Maybe it won't be in a large group, but just sharing what you've gone through with somebody else, because you never know how it may help them in the future. And then also, as we've learned that we're all created in the image of Christ, and we were created to be creative. And it's important to share your experiences, not necessarily if you don't like writing. You can share your experiences through music, through art, through photography, through even dancing, through singing, through acting, and even playing sports. There's so much out there. So once you step outside of your comfort zone, the possibilities are limitless in what you may do to impact, most importantly, the body of Christ, and then also the world. Thank you, ladies, for your time, and you can ask me any questions you want to.
Question time is open up for you guys. Any questions you guys want to ask? I mean, she's given us a lot of insight. And I was wondering if there's some questions you would, like to ask her.
I'm going to start off. Well, first of all, your book says it's titled "I Didn't Part My Lips."
Yes.
Okay, great. Looking that up. Setting boundaries on how people view you. I found that to be very impactful. What you said? Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more
On how to set the boundaries?
Yeah, at least for how you did it, or because that's what I'm working with, is setting my boundaries.
I have to tell you all, it's a work in progress.
That's right.
But you have to really be sure and confident on what you really want and not deviate it, because what I've learned is that if you go back and forth, people won't respect your opinion. So if you set the ground rules early, it's easier. They'll know what to expect from you. So that's the way that I do it. Now, all the time saying it's gonna be easy, but that's the way that works for me so far.
Anybody? Could you I got one since I'm being quiet. Okay. Could you describe how God has been a part of your decision-making process through your life?
That's a very good question.
I know. Leave it to Miss Eleanor. For y'all know me.
As you all know, I was raised in the church, and I always we all fall short, but I always try to put him first in my decision making. But what's helped me when I've strayed away is to be around like-minded people, Christ-centered people, who encourage you to study the Bible and do the right thing. So that's what's helped me make decisions. And especially, more importantly, through prayer. And I'll have to say, over the years, I have 2 cousins. They live in Memphis, Tennessee. And every Monday, we pray. So it's a way for us to have accountability, to encourage each other as we face the different challenges that we have during the week. So I would just encourage you all to just get with a group of people who can encourage you and build you up in your faith, because you'll need it along the way.
Amen. So that's practical, and that's what we need, you know, because I believe God is a part of everything.